Hello everyone, I am the Dance of Life dancer. Welcome to part 8 of 7 Days in Hell. That's foolish. I'm dead. I'm no longer alive. And I'm in the judgment room. And the dance of life, as well as my own life, now belongs to God. He's now got my fate in his hands. Supposing God were to decide if I would be given another chance to come back to earth to live for God, or if God sentenced me back in hell. Then I was asked and told I had several voices from the judges listing out all the things in my life I needed to change and things I needed to accept. Being too scared to death, I simply nodded yes to all of them. And I said in my mind, yes to all of them. It was as if hours, perhaps days, it seemed like I was answering their questions, agreeing to change everything they asked me at the judgment seat of God. I was then asked and told, if we were to send you back to earth, if we were to send you back to life, you accept the way you were sent back, however your condition might be, or sentence might be. I, without thinking, quickly nodded yes to that. Yes, I will. I'll accept whatever condition you send me back in. Sick, sentenced to jail, whatever it is. As I was then read off possible different conditions and ways I might be sent back to life, with several sicknesses I might have to return to life. One was being sent back, waking up in a hospital, totally crippled. I was given that choice. I'm sorry. Another condition was waking up in the ER with my legs amputated. And another judge said, what if we wake you up in the burn ward with your body burned, with very bad scarred up for life? You might wake up and have to spend the rest of your life in a nursing home. You might be returned in such bad shape you'd not be able to even feed yourself. Would you be willing to accept going back to life that way? Said one of the judges. All the while, these conditions, the ways of being returned to life was being spelled out to me. In my heart, I was thinking that God is testing me. He's testing me with all this to see if I'll answer yes or no. And he knows, I'm sorry, he's testing me. And he will not actually send me back to life crippled or very sick. I was foolish to think that, but that's what I thought. I was also told, if we send you back to life, you might have to accept 4 years in prison. You might have to accept no arms. I was asked, do you want to return to life if you have to face 5 years, 3 years, or 4 years? Will you accept that? I quickly nodded yes. I saw a gleam in the judges' faces. Oh, I remember that. I heard the judges say, God, he says he'll accept it. God, she says she'll accept it. Let's send her back. Let's send her back to life. Then, yet another judge spoke up, saying, but what about what Susan did and said just a few minutes ago? Then yet another judge spoke up again, saying, no, let's send Susan to hell. She belongs there. Then come a long, silent, terrifying pause. When still yet another judge said, but Susan confessed to this and asked forgiveness. Let's send Susan back home. This kept up back and forth for what seemed like days. All the time knowing the fate of my life seemed in such shaky hands, but it is indeed how God judges a person. It was like back and forth, back and forth. I heard a whole bunch of different judges. There's not just one judge I heard. I heard many different judges judging me. One said, send her back to earth. Send her back to life. The other one said, no, send her to hell. It seems so juvenile, so childlike, so odd. As if the judges of the judgment bar of God are all a bunch of teenagers. That's what it seemed like. Like they were all a bunch of teenagers with quickly changing minds. As if they were possibly playing a game with my life. It seemed like they were playing a game for days and days. As if life did not matter at all. My life seemed not to matter. The time was coming. The time was going on for what seemed like days, although I could not measure the time accurately. It felt like days, weeks. In that time, I was shifted back to the cell, then back to hell, then back to the cell, then back to the judgment room, then again back to the brink of hell, and then back to life in earth in the cell, then back in hell, then back downward. I got the feeling as if the judges of God were all juvenile teenagers playing a sick game with my life, as if they were all laughing at me and laughing at my fear as I want to live. Then the judges, as I were about to enter hell, right before I went into the pit, the voice of another judge said, "No, Susan did this good thing. Let's send Susan to hell," said another judge. And on and on. Then another judge said, "No, send Susan to heaven." It went on and on and on. Every judge was undetermined and indicated what to do with me. I remember returning to the cell one time and everything in the cell was disarranged. It was all twisted up. It looked like it was moving. I could see the creatures, evil eyes right through the walls. I could see through the demons right through the walls. I could not hide anywhere. I tried hiding on the floor. I tried every place. I could literally feel the eyes watching me and seeing straight into my mind, into my heart. Wherever I went, I felt the walls, the floor, the room was watching me, seeing into my very, very mind. I was on the floor, this time praying at the prying eyes of God. It was a strange, unbearable feeling I could not stand. I was hearing my own thoughts being read out loud, as if it was on a tape recorder. My thought was being read and said out loud. I saw strange shapes, strange things, shapes coming out at me. The fire, then fire. This fire was indeed hot, but however dampened, as if like molten lava or molten lead oozing out of every corner of the cell at me. Red ablaze, red, ablaze, running everywhere, all over. Heat was so tremendous, but somehow I was dampened from this. I saw fiery lava, coals coming into my cell. I heard sound-deafening screams. And I say to the room, I say the room was not real. The room was deformed somehow. It was out of shape. The floor and ceiling were touching in the middle, as if out of a nightmare somewhere. As they formed a semi-triangle in the center. The walls were sideways, twisted somehow into the ceiling, and the floor were not touching, but yes, totally connected at the walls. The floor were in motion. They were moving. They were phasing in and out, as if they were winking on and off. They were there, then they were disshaped, disappearing again. And as fast as that happened, I was again standing in a judgment room. What I'm saying is the room was totally out of some kind of a twisted up fifth dimension nightmare somewhere. Undescribable. and more things I did see in my life, in my past. I was being told again and again, many times. I was sent back and forth to the brink of hell, then to life, then to earth, then to hell. Then the second judge said, "Yes, she did. Send Susan to hell." Again, just when I thought it was over, and I was on my way back to hell again, then on my way back down to hell, I would hear another, but, Susan asked. Susan asked forgiveness. The second judge said, "Yes, but she stole again." "Send Susan to hell," the second judge said. As I thought again, well, this is it. It's over. It's over. I heard the again. But Susan, again, in the background, she asked for forgiveness for that on earth. She was forgiven. I kept hearing in the background music, songs about the dance of life. I stood there a very long time. As I was told what to do, if possible, staying out of hell and returning to life again by another judge. I agreed with all the judges. Yes, I somehow wound up back in the cell again. I was in that stone building. I began to experience I was in that stone building. What I began to experience was all over again. But it was far over. I'm sorry. What I began to experience what was over. But it was far from over. Someone walked in a zombie-like status in slow motion. I saw no fire, no smoke, but these supposed people, they were dead. They had no life. I now believe I am somewhere in limbo, or some kind of waiting room or something, God's waiting room, or something of God's. My fate is being decided as I stand there. I must be on the fence between life and death. If I did hang myself, I might still be there. Perhaps I'm in a hospital in a coma. As I looked around, I was still without clothes on. Next thing I knew, as if I seemed to woke up, everything seemed to be calming down. The voices were stopping. The creatures seemed to be returning back to human beings again, alive again. The words I heard in my mind seemed to be back to normal. And I was hearing the vigorous screaming, shaking, and disfigured sounds. They was in 2 cells down. I was back to life again. I thought that the entire thing was over, and I had been returned to life. Whatever had happened to me somehow switched to the guy in 2 cells down now. The cell was violently shaking, the one 2 cells down. The sounds of pure madness was coming out of the room 2 cells down. Visions of a curled up, twisted madman came out of the room. As I now, totally free from whatever had happened to me, as if it had ended real quickly, amazing, as fast as this started, it had stopped instantly. I knew somehow what was going to happen next. Even before it happened, I knew in my entire body I was going somewhere. I was going to go to court, or what seemed like a real court. And totally amazed, exactly 5 minutes later, a real person alive, a real guard, threw me some clothes and said to me in a horrified voice, "Put these clothes on, you're going to court." I said, "I know I am." And I put the clothes on and did as I did. I looked into the cell 2 cells down, and the cell was satanically jumping, screaming violently, shaking beyond what a normal room, cell, or anything would do. It could really take as if it were full of satanic demons. But it was only one demon, and it seemed as if my fate and my problems and my hell was all somehow transferred to the person, turning him into a demon. But at this point I was feeling very high, godlike.